So good morning everyone, my name is Maria and Mohamed. Our group is Premature Infant Training. So for the overview today, we'll be discussing the background, introduction, literature review, objective, materials, budget, experimental design methods, and lastly the conclusion. So for our background, premature infants, there are around 50 million cases of premature infants in a year globally, and it's caused by multiple reasons that include multiple pregnancies, infection, and other chronic conditions from the mothers. And premature infants cannot develop fully in their mother womb, so they lack in muscle tone and more sensitive to bacteria and viruses. And the most common case for premature infants is hypotonia, which is also known as the floppy syndrome, which brings negative effect to the infant if not treated correctly. And the diagnosis for this will be through CT scan and measurement of creatine kinase concentrations. And for our training tool, it will try to replicate the fetus position of the premature infant in the incubator, and the correct position will improve the posture and will not require physical therapy for the infants in the future. So for our project, we'll try to design the premature infant training tool, and this will try to aim to improve the nurses' skill and reduce permanent damage to the infants. We will try to supply to the HASU department and to enhance learning experience for the student. As you can see, we will try to get this kind of product in the end.
For our research, we found many literature reviews that is very helpful for our project. One of them, almost all of them actually consisted of using iPad, also known as the infant positioning assessment tool, and this basically is a guideline that gives the recommended position of the babies, how they should be at resting position for their shoulders, their head, their hips, and all their joints basically. And this is scored based on the joints is scored, and then this will determine if they are receiving the proper care. And the proper care will also improve the conditions because it affects their joints. And the current applications in dummies are very limited to only CPR dummies, crash test dummies, and blade dolls. So we want to expand ours to when there is specific hypotonic babies. And the type of joints that we found from our literature review includes the rigidity, where we want, even though we want the dummies to be very flexible, we also want to have a center of mass. And the flexibility of the joints will have a very wide range of degrees of freedom, and it will imitate floppiness for babies with the hypotonic conditions. And for our joints, we want to use bond sockets because that will ideally give us the degree of freedom that we want. And we want the dummy overall to be strong but flexible. And the purpose of the training tool is that it will allow for nurses to properly care for hypotonic baby when they are in the NICU, because they have very floppy arms, and this dummy will want to properly reflect that so the nurses can practice it before tending to an actual baby to prevent any damage that they may cause if they care for it improperly. And we want it to be projected to be nurses in nearby clinics, because nurses will mostly be dealing with these babies in the NICU, and we will also want to reach out to the HASU nursing department. And as I mentioned before, we want our dummy to have 27 to 30 weeks size for our premature infants, and that is actually very small. Their body is probably from head to toe more or less 7 to 8 inches. That is, extremely small, but it is an accurate size. And this will allow us to practice positioning the babies. And our expectations is that it will be able to follow the iPad guidelines easily, as well as become really easy to use. For materials, for dummy actually, we want to have a skeleton and more of a skin that will cover the skeleton. And the skin, we'll be using thermoplastic elastomer. This is a very this is a very commonly used kind of rubber, and we were trying to have the elasticity of it to be sturdy, and it can protect the skeleton inside from damage, but it's also can replicate an actual skin-like feel. And for our limbs, we want to use PVC, also known as polyvinyl chloride. This material is water resistant, it has very high tensile strength, and it's good for the limbs because we want it to be strong, but to replicate closely to the tensile strength of the baby's bone. And our hinges, like the stainless door hinges that you see up there, we want to use it for the neck and the hips movements, for the degrees of freedom, and we will restrict how much the door hinges can move to properly reflect how much the hips and the neck should be moving. And the balls and sockets, as mentioned before, will be for the shoulders and the hips, where the legs come out, and the knees and the elbows.
So the budget for these materials that we just discussed will end up costing about $112. That's subject to change. That was just a rough estimate. Equipment used, number of hours would be about 10 hours because we're trying to do the tensile testing on the skeleton, and we should put in about 80 hours of work onto this. So it should cost about $112 for now. And then for the experimental design, firstly, our prototype met the flexibility requirements because we did the preliminary data on flexibility requirements, and it had a lower tensile strength than the bone, and which is good, and it's user-friendly. The disadvantages of this is it does not mimic the 27-week baby. It should be a lot smaller than this. It should be palm size, and it's missing a torso and the lower leg and the neck and the head. We should be adding that before our second prototype. And for the experimental design improvements that we're going to do, we should make it smaller to fit this 27 weeks baby, and it should have an outer layer, like Maria just said in the materials section. It will have a head, hopefully, by the second prototype. And we want to replace wood with another material and make it look more like a ball and socket joint instead of a keychain joint. And then for the methods, we're gonna, like I said, replace the wooden part with another material. We're gonna perform tensile testing using the Instron device and the BME lab. And then we're gonna draft a questionnaire with the help of the nursing department. That questionnaire is to assess how our device should act so that they could survey our device. And then we will also build a new prototype with the appropriate material, and we will send the prototype to the nursing department so that they can practice with it, and then we perform our own rubric to assess them as well, and then cover it with the plastic material.
So in conclusion, our premature infant training tool will help the nursing students to increase their experience with positioning the premature infant, and the material selecting and testing will be done for each prototype. The test that we'll be conducting is tensile strength test and flexibility test. The tool will come in different sizes, as Mo and Maria mentioned, so we're trying to go as small as we can. And the final product will be presented at the BMES 2019 conference. And our references. Any questions?